Don't listen to this alone in the dark.
I was inside my apartment when the hallway lights started flickering again. The building had been quiet for hours after the evacuation trucks drove past earlier that night. Most of the people in the building left with them. I didn't. I stayed because the streets were already full of abandoned cars and the screaming outside had gotten worse before the sun went down. Inside the building, it felt safer. The front doors downstairs were locked and the stairwell door on my floor was heavy steel. I remember standing near the kitchen sink, listening to the pipes ticking inside the walls and the wind pushing trash across the street outside. Every once in a while, something hit a car alarm in the distance, and the sound echoed between the buildings. Other than that, the entire place felt empty. I kept telling myself that if nothing had gotten into the building yet, then I could make it through the night. A few minutes later, I heard something in the hallway outside my apartment. At first, it sounded like someone walking slowly down the corridor, but the steps didn't sound normal. One foot dragged a little before the next one stepped forward. The sound moved along the floor in a slow, uneven rhythm that made the hallway floor creak. I stepped closer to my door and listened. The dragging steps got closer until they stopped right outside my apartment. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence on the other side of the door. Then I heard breathing. It was loud enough to pass through the wood. Each breath sounded thick and wet, like something was stuck in its throat. I leaned toward the peephole and looked into the dark hallway. At first, I couldn't see anything clearly because the hallway light had gone out. But after a moment, I saw movement. A figure was standing directly in front of my door. Its head was tilted slightly to one side, and its shoulders were slumped forward, like the weight of its own body was pulling it down. The light from inside my apartment slipped through the peephole and touched part of its face. The skin was gray and stretched tight over the bone. One eye looked cloudy and unfocused, while the other stared straight ahead without blinking. Its mouth hung open just enough for thick saliva to drip down its chin. The sound came from deep inside its throat. It wasn't trying to say anything. It was reacting to something it sensed behind the door. I froze and stopped breathing for a second, because I realized it wasn't just standing there. Its head slowly turned until that open eye lined up with the peephole. The thing knew someone was inside. Its fingers lifted slowly and touched the surface of the door. I could hear the nails scraping lightly against the wood as it felt across the surface like it was exploring it. The breathing grew heavier, louder with each inhale. The scratching moved higher across the door until the fingers reached the exact spot where the peephole was. The eye outside the door moved closer until it filled the entire peephole. The cloudy film across it shifted slightly as it focused on the tiny circle of light. Its jaw moved slowly up and down as thick saliva stretched between its teeth. Then its hand slammed against the door. The impact shook the entire frame. I jumped back into the living room while the thing outside began pounding its weight into the door again and again. Each hit made the deadbolt rattle against the metal plate. The wood creaked with every impact, but it held. The pounding stopped suddenly, and the hallway went quiet again, except for the heavy breathing right outside. Then the footsteps started again. They dragged slowly away from my door down the hallway. I stood there listening to the sound fade until the corridor was silent again. I waited a long time before moving. The quiet felt wrong now, like the building itself was listening. I stepped into the kitchen and grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, keeping my eyes on the apartment door the entire time. That's when I heard the stairwell door open. The metal hinge at the end of the hallway always made a grinding sound when it moved. I'd heard it for years whenever neighbors came up the stairs. The sound echoed through the hallway again now, slow and heavy. The stairwell door had opened, but the thing outside my door had already walked away. The dragging footsteps started again, this time inside the stairwell. I could hear them climbing upward toward the hallway outside my apartment. Each step scraped loudly against the concrete, like the weight on those legs barely had control over the movement. The stairwell door creaked open again. Something stepped into the hallway. The dragging footsteps moved slowly down the corridor toward my apartment door again. Then they stopped. For a moment, nothing happened. The breathing returned, louder now that the thing was standing still again. Then I heard the door handle move. It twisted slowly downward and stopped when it hit the lock. The handle lifted again and twisted once more. The wood around the lock creaked when the weight of the thing leaned against the door. Then the scratching started again. The nails dragged across the door in long, slow lines. The sound rolled out of its throat like it was frustrated. Then the pounding started again. The door shook harder this time, and the hinges groaned with the force of each hit. I ran toward the back hallway that connected to the maintenance stairwell on the other side of the building. If I could reach that stairwell, I might be able to slip downstairs and get out before the thing broke through the front door. I pulled open the door to the back hallway. The maintenance stairwell door was already open. Something was standing inside it. The same gray skin, the same cloudy eye, the same slack jaw dripping saliva onto the floor. It stepped slowly out of the stairwell and into the hallway. The sound filled the narrow space as it moved closer. Behind me, I heard the front door of my apartment crack open as the deadbolt finally tore loose from the frame. The door swung inward with a loud creak. Heavy footsteps dragged across the floor behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. The breathing behind me matched the breathing in front of me. The one from the stairwell kept walking forward, while the one behind me stepped out of the apartment doorway into the hallway. Their dragging footsteps stopped at the same time. I was standing between them now. Neither one rushed. Neither one lunged. They just stood there, breathing slowly, like they were listening to the sound of my heart pounding in my chest. The sound came from both directions at once. Their heads tilted slightly toward me, and then they stepped closer. If you're listening to this, then you already know the worst part isn't when they see you. The worst part is when they hear you breathing and realize you're still alive somewhere nearby. If you have a horror story of your own, please feel free to drop it in the comment section. You never know, the next story could be yours. Subscribe to The Vault so you don't miss what comes next.